Ladies and gentlemen, at Derby Storm Arena, it's time for the main event of the evening. And would you please welcome first to the ring, the challenger for the title from Sheffield, Johnny Nelson.
Well, Johnny Nelson comes to the ring tonight in search of boxing redemption. Here is a man who was slaughtered by the press and effectively driven into exile. So inept and embarrassing were his two previous world title challenges, but they were a long time ago. Nelson has matured and he does possess quite a lot of skill as well as underrated power. So is this the night that Johnny Nelson banishes the ghosts from his past and becomes a world champion? Judging by the amount of talking he's been doing in the build-up to this fight, he certainly thinks so.
Well, he's waited a long time for this moment. He was appalling in his first two attempts at world titles. He now feels it's his time. He's matured. He's come through the hard way, fighting as a cruiserweight and heavyweight and taking fights all over the world. But finally, he's matured. He feels he's ready to take the title.
Johnny Nelson, 32, his third chance to become a world champion and almost certainly his last chance. He's been looking for this fight for a couple of years and now it's arrived. From Brendan Ingle's Sheffield camp, Johnny Nelson. A real extrovert these days out of the ring, in stark contrast to the publicity-shy champion, Carl Thompson.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, making his way into the arena, the WBO Cruiserweight Champion of the World from Manchester, Carl the Cat Thompson.
So here is Carl Thompson, Britain's boxer of 1998, after those two thrilling wins over Chris Eubank, and what great fights they were. Thompson from Manchester, 34 years of age, He's a throwback, a blue-collar world champion who's happier sweating buckets in the gym than giving interviews, or for that matter, making these kind of fancy entrances. But he's an underrated fighter, Glenn.
He's very underrated. He's very strong. Spends hours in the gym. Real fanatical trainer. You know, he's worked very hard for this. Nelson's got under his skin. He has a point to prove here. He wants to win this in big fashion, and he promises a second-round knockout.
At his level, his virtues are rather like those of Evander Holyfield. Heart, guts, superb conditioning. And at 34, nearly as old, but he can be hit and hurt, though he does have superb recovery powers, as he showed against Eubank. His trainer, Billy Graham, from the Phoenix camp in Manchester, says that Thompson is seething inside, and that's just how he likes it. Look at this now when they get in the ring. The psychological battle goes on. Look at his face. Just look at his face, Carl Thompson. Here's the tale of the tape for this one. Both very experienced fighters. Thompson is a couple of years older. Nelson has the height and reach advantages. Nelson had to take off his shorts and underpants to make the weight last night at the weigh-in. Nelson's been a professional now for 13 years, longer than Carl Thompson. Nelson with more fights, more rounds boxed. He's been all over the world, including his time basically in exile. But Thompson, of the two of them, with a better knockout ratio, though Nelson's power is not to be underrated. Nelson knows all about long fights. He's been the distance many, many times. Thompson only a couple of times with Eubank. I don't think stamina's a problem for either of them, though, frankly. Nelson with 32 knockdowns during his 13 years as a professional. He's only been on the floor a couple of times. Thompson's been down 9 times. I think Nelson probably got the better chin. And this is what the bookmakers say. Thompson 11-10 against. Nelson 6-4 on the draw at 33-1, and the Thompson fans will regard those odds against as quite handy. I saw 6-4 against this morning with one bookmaking company, which seemed a bit tempting for those who like to have a bet on the fights.
Ladies and gentlemen, the officials appointed for this contest by the World Boxing Organization, the supervisor at ringside, their president, Mr. Francisco Valcasel from Puerto Rico. The British Boxing Board Control Supervisor, Mr. Simon Block. The steward in charge this evening, Mr. Charles Giles from Birmingham. The timekeeper at the bell, Mr. Roy Bicknell from Birmingham. And the judges at ringside scoring the contest, Mr. John Coyle from Wolverhampton, Mr. William Lurch from Chicago, USA, and Mr. Manuel Oliver from Spain. And the referee in charge of the action tonight appearing in his 51st professional world title contest, Mr. Paul Thomas from Derby. My lords, ladies and gentlemen, tonight live on Sky Sports from Derby Storm Arena, it's big fight time. And tonight, Frank Warren proudly presents the War of the Roses and World Championship Boxing. And a contest of 12 3-minute rounds for the WBO Cruiserweight Championship of the World. Between and introducing the boxers, and firstly, fighting out of the red corner, he wears the red and white trunks and fights from Sheffield in Yorkshire, England. He weighed in at 13 stone, 7 pounds and 14 ounces, and holds a 44-fight professional record. 31 wins, 22 wins by way of knockout, with 12 losses and 1 draw. He's the former undefeated British and European Cruiserweight champion and the challenger for the title tonight, Sheffield's Johnny Nelson. And his opponent, ladies and gentlemen, across the ring in the blue corner, wearing the silver trunks trimmed with yellow, coming from Manchester, Lancashire, England, and weighing at 13 stone, 7.5 pounds. He had a 28-fight professional record, 24 wins, 17 wins by way of knockout, with 4 losses. He's the undefeated British and European Cruiserweight champion and the current WBO Cruiserweight champion of the world. Tonight defending his title for the 3rd time, Carl the Cat Thompson. The referee, Mr. Paul Thomas, will now give his instructions to both boxers.
Okay, you ready? Okay, come in closer. I've spoken to you both in the dressing rooms. You know what I expect from you. Give me a good, clean contest, okay? Touch gloves. Best of luck to both of you.
The ballyhoo has been loud and long.
Cruiserweight Championship of the world.
But all the talk at press conferences will count for nothing now. Fights are not won at press conferences, or very rarely anyway.
For the first round,
I think the start of this fight is very important. Who gets control early?
Nelson, expect him to try to dominate from the outside using his height and reach and speed. For Thompson, the answer would seem to be pressure all the way to make Nelson fight bell to bell in every round. The other part of this equation, will Johnny Nelson freeze again as he has in previous world title attempts? Nelson in the white and red, the kind of skirt from Sheffield. Thompson from Manchester. Have to take punches maybe on the way, and it's a sharp start this from a very confident Johnny Nelson. And Thompson just looking a little bit befuddled early on here.
And this is what Thompson has to watch for, these fast, sharp punches, accurate as they are from Johnny Nelson.
He's been oozing confidence in the last few weeks about this, Johnny Nelson. And people who spar with him and people who've worked with him say that he is a pretty heavy hitter. And we've seen Thompson dazed before. He's usually come back from it. And you can see the problems already facing Carl Thompson here, giving away this height and reach.
Well, you would think it's early in the fight when Thompson could be hurt with these stinging punches from Nelson.
Good sharp stuff this from Johnny Nelson, and Thompson very much on the back foot here in the opening round.
Thompson just trying to cover up, catch these punches on the way in. He has to be careful.
All Nelson in the opening round, but it's early. Good little right cross from him as well. Thompson trying to bulldoze his way in close to get in range. He can't get there at the moment. Good right cross though from Thompson, who's covering up well. He's taking quite a few around the arms and gloves.
Thompson has to let Nelson feel the weight of his own punches early in the fight. Can't let Nelson get too much confidence early on.
Thompson needs to get in with a blow that just may shake up Nelson, maybe dent his confidence a little.
And a few decent little short right hands from Thompson, but the majority of the work from Nelson.
Undoubtedly Nelson's round. Welcome back to the Derby Storm Arena. You're looking at Johnny Nelson, who's made a great start here in his third bid to become a world champion.
Yes, he was catching Thompson with good punches as he came in. Thompson, for his part, did manage to catch a lot of them. It was mainly just a spell very early in the round. There was a good little short right hand.
Round 2.
And this is the round that Thompson predicted earlier on this week, that he may win the contest. I think he may have had his tongue in his cheek a little bit. I think he was just trying to counter Nelson's burst of publicity by coming up with a prediction of his own. Sometimes Nelson can be a frustrating, enigmatic kind of fighter who switches off in contests if he gets frustrated. Certainly seen him come out fast here, but will he sustain it?
Well, Nelson very much a front foot fighter. It's different when he starts to take punches and then he gets very defensive and becomes a lot of a spoiler.
Left hook from Thompson, seeming to get in. It's getting closer in this round, Thompson. Early on, anyway. Thompson, who calls himself the Cat, not because of any prowess as a goalkeeper. His name's Carl Adrian Thompson. That's his initials. A rather more mundane explanation, but there it is.
Well, Nelson's starting to let these punches go, but Thompson, for the most part, taking them on the gloves.
It's not really ramming out that jab, Johnny Nelson. He's just pushing it out, and as you say, arms and gloves a lot of the time.
Yes, he's just pawing with that shot. Thompson is getting through with a few solid right hands over the top.
Good right hand that was from Nelson. He did get through with that one. Maybe just stung Thompson a little. Thompson trying to cover up, gloves held high, taking a lot around that, found a little right hand of his own.
Good right hand from Thompson as he came out of that.
Again caught with a right hand though, Thompson. His legs just seem to splay momentarily, but inside he gets him with a right uppercut and two rights of his own. This is more Thompson's kind of fight now.
Good right hand again from Thompson. Nelson's hands dropped on the ropes. Thompson made him pay for that.
Makings of a good fight here. Some people thought this, for all the build-up, could end up being disappointing and a bit of a maul. But so far, so good.
Well, Nelson's standing there. He's prepared to fight. He's still got confidence, but Thompson matching his fire with fire.
Again, the clubbing right from Thompson, who's managing to get in with some of these short hooks inside. This is Thompson's game.
Well, this is a good second part of the round to Thompson. He's really shook up Nelson, landing with good hooks inside.
Pretty good comeback by Thompson in this second round. Brendan Ingle, who got the MBE yesterday at Buckingham Palace, and well deserved too. The trainer of Johnny Nelson. Nelson very much the elder statesman of the Ingle camp these days.
Well, I think Thompson got the better of that round. It was a very good start from Nelson, but Thompson come through a little rough patch and then finished the round very good indeed. Good little short right hands, kept the pressure on Nelson. Nelson dropping the hands, and Thompson made him pay with a little right hand there. And that was good pressure, and I'm sure Thompson's confidence will have risen with that round.
Quarters, 10 seconds.
Brendan Ingle, the trainer, telling Johnny Nelson, you mustn't stand there on the inside. You've got to punch and get away.
Round 3.
Much better second round for Carl Thompson, who's making his third defense of this WBO cruiserweight title after two exciting wins over Chris Eubank. Thompson in the yellow and silver trunks, lives near the Bolton Wanderers football ground. And Nelson here starting fast again in round 3. He's getting those gloves up well though, Thompson. Oh, right hand seemed to momentarily sting Thompson.
Well, this is a good fight for the cruiserweight title. Really warming up here.
Again, that right hand just seeming to hit the gloves of Thompson, who's covering well. His defense is pretty tight, taking a lot on arms and gloves, and that means, I think, there's the possibility again of scoring controversies.
Well, he's just really flicking out that jab. Thompson catching it. But the odd good right hand from Nelson.
Nelson with these flashy skills and pretty fast hands. He's a man who's been the distance with some fairly high-class heavyweights in his time, Johnny Nelson.
Nelson's best ploy is to keep it at long range, where his sharp punches, long punches will have best effect. In close, Thompson getting the better of it.
Good left hook from Thompson. Just a bit wild, though.
Some chopping right hands from Nelson going in. They're really battling for superiority of this round.
Good
Nelson,
right uppercut there, wasn't there, from Nelson, too?
just getting the better of it, Ian.
Thunderous atmosphere inside what is normally a basketball arena just down the road from Derby County's football ground, the baseball ground. This is the Storm Arena, and there's a bit of a storm brewing in there. Great right uppercut this time from Thompson. It's very, very hard to quell the spirit of Carl Thompson.
Well, that's what his camp are hoping, that they're going to get to the heart of Nelson. And once he finds he can't hurt Thompson, then they're hoping will go on the retreat and start his spoiling tactics.
All the signs of this developing into a rugged and absorbing battle. Welcome back to Derby. Ian Darke and Glenn McCrory with you at ringside for this one. And I wonder what they're saying to Carl Thompson in there.
Well, I'm sure they're telling him to keep nice and tucked up. Don't take any chances. He's managing to catch a lot of the punches. Just got to be a little wary with these punches from the outside. I think they'll want him to keep it close, so Nelson can't get his punches off, and that's where Thompson does his best work.
Round 4, the yellow and silver of defending WBO cruiserweight champion Carl Thompson of Manchester, getting with a right hand there. Johnny Nelson, who previously had a draw with Carlos de Leon and then a defeat against James Waring in previous world title attempts. Good left hand from Nelson. Oh, a right hand! Decks Thompson in the 4th round. Breakthrough for Johnny Nelson. He's up quickly, Thompson. He'll have to take a mandatory 8. Well, Chris Eubank had him on the floor as well, but he couldn't beat him. But will Nelson do it?
There were good punches around the outside. They're really befuddling Thompson.
Legs look a bit unsteady for Thompson, and a long time left in the round too. Over 2 minutes. Right uppercut got through too from Nelson, who's having much the better of it now. His hand speed blurring at times. It looks too much for Thompson at the moment. He's staggering around the ring, Glenn.
He's unable to get out of the way of these big right hooks. The referee looking in closely now.
Paul Thomas refereeing in his hometown, having to look on closely at Carl Thompson, but he'll be mindful of the fact that Thompson usually has superb powers of recovery. But make no mistake, the champion is in deep trouble. deep trouble.
Well, he trains so hard, he really is a fitness fanatic, Thompson. He's going to need all of those reserves of fitness to get through this.
Has he survived the crisis? Big round for Nelson so far. Is Thompson's head clearing? Are those legs freshening?
Starting to come round a bit now, Thompson. Little short shots inside. Nelson probably a little tired. He's exerted himself a lot in this round.
Thompson's magnificent conditioning looked to have got him through the crisis at the moment. Good stiff jab back from Thompson. Goodness me, he's got a fighting heart, this man from Manchester.
Well, he looks as if he's getting through the round, Thompson, but it's been a tough one and a big round for Nelson.
Thompson getting through with one or two good-looking headshots himself, but Nelson has a good chin, and it's a big, big round that for Johnny Nelson. He looked close to winning it in that round. He couldn't quite finish the job. Well, here's the knockdown coming up now, scored by Johnny Nelson in round 4.
Yes, clubbing punches around the outside. There was that right hand. Just got it round the guard on the side of the head. And a good punch. But Thompson struggled to get through that round. Nelson full of confidence, letting the punches really go. He did extremely well to get through it, Thompson.
This is later on in the round now from Johnny Nelson.
Quarters, 10 seconds.
Well, they must feel
Seconds out.
as if they're on the very verge of the World Championship. 5th round. Nelson, remember, the challenger in the white trunks. He says that he'll get this job done inside 5 rounds. That was the prediction at the final press conference from Nelson.
Good jab, stiff punch there from Thompson.
Thompson will just try to hang on in there, I think, at this stage, and look to maybe outguts and outstay Nelson late on. There is this thing maybe playing in Nelson's mind that he's hit Thompson with all his best shots and Carl's still there.
Well, that could happen as this fight goes on, but Nelson's still right in front of Thompson. Hasn't opted to get on his bike or look for safety. He's still there. He wants to get this job done inside distance.
2 right hands from Thompson. Nelson just smiled at him and nodded. Likes to talk to his opponents at times in there. Now he's waving Thompson in at him. This is a much, much different Johnny Nelson than the one we've seen before in world title fights.
Yes, this is Johnny Nelson with belief in his abilities.
As I said before, this is Johnny Nelson's chance at redemption, and look at this. Dazzling combinations, and he's going to stop it. It's over in the 5th round. Nelson lays the ghost to rest. Thompson protests bitterly, bitterly at the stoppage. And maybe it was a bit contentious too, but Johnny Nelson becomes the WBO Cruiserweight champion, and Carl Thompson is still protesting bitterly about that. We've got a real controversy there. Look, he's screaming at Frank Warren, Carl Thompson. Oh, yet again, we're going to have a right old rumpus about the outcome of a big world title fight.
Well, Nelson was well on top. He was really letting his punches go well, but I thought the stoppage was very premature. This is the world champion we're talking about. He hadn't been on the floor at that time. It was earlier in the fight.
bearing in mind Thompson's great powers of recovery, was he in enough trouble for the fight to be stopped? He was certainly on shaky-looking legs, but look, I mean, he had enough about him to immediately protest about it.
Yes, the reaction was immediate. You know, he had been caught with a few good shots, but I thought it was definitely too early. This is a world championship fight. It's the world champion that's been stopped so early, and I thought that was unfair. His hands are still up. You know, he's been caught with a couple of punches, but he protests and pushes the referee straight away. He's furious at being stopped, and I think rightly so.
I think I'd go along with you there, Glenn. I think you, bearing in mind Thompson's record of coming back and surviving crisis, this was a very contentious end by referee Paul Thomas, and he's got his back, he's behind Thompson there as he stops the fight.
That's right, he couldn't see his eyes, he couldn't see how much trouble he was. He hadn't been on the floor in this round.
Another rematch coming up. when all the controversies died down, I wouldn't be surprised, you know.
Well, it was a very good fight while it lasted, very exciting. Nelson very happy, he performed very well. Let's not take anything away from Johnny Nelson. He never made the decision.
But Johnny Nelson, at the third time of asking, has become the WBO cruiserweight champion, a world champion at last. It was a great performance, really, from Nelson. Let's not take anything away from Johnny Nelson there. That was a wonderful night of triumph for him, but the ending was very, very contentious.
Ladies and gentlemen, after 1 minute, 42 seconds of round 5, the referee has stopped the contest in favour of the winner and new cruiserweight champion of the world, Johnny Nelson.
Barry, I don't think we can gainsay that is the best Johnny Nelson has fought in his whole career here.
Yeah, that is certainly the most committed I've ever seen him.
And what we've got to talk about here should not denigrate Nelson's effort.
Without a doubt.
But what about the stoppage?
Well, you know, it is a difficult job for the referee, and he has got to consider the fighters, and ultimately his job is to protect the fighters. But given that it was so early in the fight, and given that Thompson has such powers of recovery, as Ian had pointed out, you know, I thought it was very premature and very unfair and unjust on Carl Thompson. We've seen him in dire straits before against Chris Eubank, and he was able to come back and put on a marvellous performance, but I think this is far too premature.
Well, it was a grudge match beforehand, so I don't know how the fire will be burning inside Thompson from now on. But let's get down there and have a word with John Nelson.
Well, whatever the controversy, Johnny Nelson has become a world champion at last, and congratulations, but the ending was a bit contentious there. Was that a premature stoppage, do you think, Johnny?
Carl was going to get put down, and seriously, every time I hit him clean, he was in trouble, obviously. I let him do his thing, work hard, and I wanted to push it. He didn't think I'd stand there with him, he thought I'd try and run. My intention was to draw whatever he could out of him, hit him with his best shots. What shots he had, I was too fast for him, too strong for him. You know, and each time I hit him, you saw he was in trouble. It was just a matter of time. He'd have got put down before the end of the round anyway.
You made a prediction come true there too, because at the final press conference you said 5th round.
You know, I don't usually make predictions, but Carl was mouthing off saying he's going to do it in 2 rounds. At the end of the day, you know, when I want to step it up, I'll step it up. And I know whenever I open up on Carl, he was in trouble. Regardless of what he says, how he was stopped or anything, he was in trouble whenever I hit him clean. And he knew that.
This was your night for boxing redemption, wasn't it? You've laid a few ghosts to rest there, and they've been around for 7, 8 years.
This, for me, was just to show that Brennan Ingles' system works. I'm a product of St. Thomas's Boxing Club. I entered the gym with nothing, no natural talent, no natural raw ability. I entered the gym with nothing. I'm a product of the gym. I am the gym.
A great night too for Brendan. You've had one or two dodgy ones lately. MBE as well yesterday. Is some weekend, Brendan?
MBE, and let me say this to all the people that's watching. Frank Warren made it happen for us, and we stand beside him. Yes, thanks. Frank Warren done the job, and it's loyalty. Johnny Nelson said he'd stop him on 5 rounds. 4 round, 5 round. He was going to knock him out. He took his best shots. I says, take the sting out of him. He took the sting out of him. Then he was going to knock him out. and it was better the referee took him out of there before Johnny destroyed him.
Thanks a lot, Brendan. Let's bring in Frank Warren here. Frank, we had Lewis Holyfield. Now there's going to be another rumpus. We know this. I mean, Carl Thompson, we can't find him just at the moment. What's your view about that? Because Carl Thompson is furious, bearing in mind his powers of recovery, that he was stopped like that.
I hear what you're saying. And Carl did that, as you know, when he fought Chris Eubanks, similar thing. But if you're not throwing punches back, the referee has to make a decision. And at that stage of the fight, he wasn't throwing them back. I'm sure we can make a rematch. I'm sure we can do that.
Another rematch.
Bottom line is, you know, what you must, you know, whether you know, it's talking about a contentious fight. At the end of the day, Johnny, on my book, and I managed both fighters jointly with Brendan. In my book, he won every round. So it's not contentious from that point of view. He was winning every round. Now, I know Coles comes on later rounds in fights, but the bottom line was he wasn't replying to the punches. And if he wants the rematch, we can certainly do it.
Johnny, would you be happy to give Carl Thompson a rematch?
Oh, like Carl, a rematch is no problem. This time, you know, he'll think twice about his tactics. You can't try and stand toe-to-toe with me. I'm too big a guy for this division. You can't do that with me.
You've been around a long time, Johnny, haven't you? You've been around 13 years now. I mean, what's it like now with the World Championship belt around that waist at last?
The only frustrating thing about it was it wasn't official. You know, I let a lot of people down 10, 8 years ago, and people just seem to harp on that. At the end of the day, it's payback. It's about experience, knowledge, you know, and that's what it's all about. I didn't cheat at all. I did everything right. I'm securing my family. I've got a lovely wife, beautiful daughters. I've got to secure my family.
And Nazim Ahmed tried to get him to pull out of the fight 4 or 5 weeks ago, and people that's listening to this, Frank Warren's there. He tried to get Johnny to pull out of the fight. Did he, Johnny?
Yeah, he was talking about doing something after the fight.
Doing after the fight. Well, you take it from
there's another controversy on the boil as well. But well done to Johnny Nelson tonight. Well done becoming world champion at last, Johnny. Back to you in the studio.
Well, that's a story we can follow up with great interest. Johnny Nelson has walked a long road to success. Old cliche, couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Now, Carl Thompson has disappeared, I can tell you from the ring here, with steam pouring out of his ears. He is absolutely furious. We'll try and catch up with Thompson later, but for now, here's Billy Graham, Thompson's trainer, with Adam Smith.
Well, Billy, to say it was a controversial ending would be an understatement. How do you feel?
I'm gutted, you know what I mean? I'm gutted for Carl mostly, but for myself as well and all the camp. We knew that the first 4 rounds was crucial. We knew he was dangerous. We knew that's why he tucked up and weathered the storm, and he was weathering the storm. And then he would have turned round, and he would have started to break Johnny up. Johnny threw a lot of punches. That was a diabolical stoppage. You know, it's a championship, so it's a world title fight. He was hurt more than that in Eubanks' fight, and they never stopped him. I've seen him hurt more than that in other fights. He gets shook up and he comes back.
I mean, seeing his reaction, immediately it was stopped.
Of course, his eyes was clear. He wasn't stunned. He was pushed off balance. He took a wicked shot before and got up and come back. He was clear as soon as he come back to the corner. He was right as rain, and he was okay then. And Johnny Nelson would have punched himself out. It's not Johnny's fault. You know what I mean? I'm not having a pop at him, but you know, an experienced ref like Paul Thomas, I'm surprised.
What's Carl Thompson's state of mind at the moment? You've spoken to him since?
He won't even speak. He's absolutely frantic. He was right as rain. Listen, I'm not one of these blokes who want fights to go on for too long. Better too soon for me, but that was ridiculous. He's a championship of the world. He's a tough man. His speech wasn't slurred. His eyes wasn't clear.
OK, Billy, we'll try and get a word with Carl later. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
New owner of this WBO World Cruiserweight title belt then, Johnny Nelson. And it was a thriller while it lasted. A 5th round stoppage by referee Paul Thomas here tonight. Carl Thompson's career has taken a big setback here. Now, live action when we come back, featuring the light middleweight Paul Samuels, who's a big prospect, and 1 or 2 things to tidy up about this one.